Whether it is the mining industry here in the state, or whether it is a small business that wants to open a shop that has to justify that they're not going to push some small animal out of the way. The EPA must be brought under control.
We have a little timekeeping problem here. So 5 minutes total for the Q&A. Have we already passed that point? No, what are we at? We have? Okay, that's all the questions for the commander. Thank you, Commander.
Thank you.
It's 5 minutes total for all the questions. They have to all get them in 5 minutes. Okay? Thank you. And if you keep your applause down, we're going to get through faster. My old boss wants to talk. Should we let him? Next candidate for CD2, Mark Amodei.
Thank you for that warm, he's not the chairman anymore, to heck with him, welcome. Yeah, you are. Thanks to all of you for spending a Saturday morning to make a difference in our state and our country. And before I move on, I also want to say thank you to Corey Adair for your service as the executive director. I know your willingness to work with the handicapped, being myself as chairman, is well documented, but I wanted to publicly thank you for your efforts on behalf of our party. Our world and our view of our world has become so fraught with despair, depression, and recession and worry that we often forget what an incredible country and what an incredible state we have. It is due to that collective memory of what a great country this is and what a great state this is that I assume brought many of us here to this building today to participate in that. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of being called the bad guys as a Republican because we don't advocate government taking care of people from cradle to grave. And we don't advocate the state doing what the federal government doesn't do. It is this question: who will you send back to Congress to change the course of our country? We are a nation of majority rule, but it seems that we spend the greater part of our lawmaking efforts making laws that curtail the freedoms of law-abiding citizens and try to take care of those that are in the minority, those scofflaws. This needs to stop. We must return our Nevada and our nation to American ideals of self-determination, personal responsibility, and accountability as our core values. What criteria will you value in this room today as you cast your votes for who's going to go back and be your advocate for the remainder of Dean Heller's term? I hope you think about experience. You've heard about it already, and I suspect you're going to hear about it a little bit more. But when we talk about experience, when we talk about how our country works, 24 years in the private sector, that's how I've earned my living as I stand before you here today. You know the private sector? That outfit that is the tax base for funding government? You know the private sector? The outfit that creates jobs, which pay other people's paychecks, which then create taxes? I hope that you will think about who has earned their adult living in the private sector for the last 24 years when you talk about the issues and you make your value judgments as to who will be the best advocate out of the 3 people that are here before you today in terms of representing your ideals in the U.S. Congress. I hope also when you think about experience that you say, what is your experience with the party? What have you done with the party? Well, you know what? I've drank from a fire hose for the last year. And I can tell you it's been an honor and a privilege. As only the 2nd elected Nevada official to simultaneously hold office as the chair of your party, I got to tell you, when I came in, I was wondering, and when I left, I was humbled. Humbled to know how your counties are organized. Humbled to know who the movers and shakers are. Humbled to watch the transition from a central committee chair in one county to another, or transition on this board that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of the team. And you've heard, it doesn't matter who gets the credit as long as you're focused on what's getting done. I don't recall ever saying that the last year was great because Mark Amodei happened to get elected as the chair of this organization 13 months ago. I do remember saying that Republicans are on the upswing because of the collective efforts of this group. Politics is a team sport, and I am humbled to have been a part of your team for the last year and learn even more about your counties and how they operate and how we operate as Republicans to make a major stride from 2008 to election night 2010, and then beyond, the one we're all looking forward to on 2012, and even one a few days down the road here. Finally, 14 years legislative experience. I'm not going to belabor that, that's all in there. I will just tell you this. I am humbled to have been selected by my Republican colleagues to chair a major morning committee 3 times during that time. I am just as humbled to be selected by my Republican colleagues to have presided over the Senate as the President Pro Tem when President Krolicki, Lieutenant Governor Krolicki, is not there, and before him Lorraine Hunt. That was an honor and a privilege. I would like to hope that I didn't abuse it and that it was earned and that I was never parading that around as something about me. It was our team, and that was my role to play for our team. I hope you talk about knowledge. I hope you think about knowledge of our state from someone who was raised here, from someone who's worked here, and from someone who has represented all portions of this state over a 14-year legislative career. And let me make it perfectly clear, that is not being a politician. That is carrying out the solemn trust of public service. And that means getting the facts, putting your thinking cap on, talking to shareholders, and doing what you think is right. Knowledge of your issues, knowledge of your communities, knowledge of your industries. When you talk about September 14th, I would hope that you would value knowledge of what's going on in each sector of the state, all 17 counties, and what those touchstone issues are. Integrity. Somebody once said integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's looking. I hope you think about that. Because in 2009, at the end of a term-limited career, faced with phenomenal amounts of tax increases, budget increases, and sweeps that have later been determined to be illegal, I voted against all of that. I didn't do that because I'd signed the taxpayer pledge. I didn't do that because some lobbyist came up and said, hey, why don't you try on being conservative or liberal or moderate or whatever. I did it because it was dumb policy to raise taxes in a recession. It was dumb policy to increase spending in a recession. And it was dumb policy for the state to take money that it legally wasn't entitled to. That's but one example. There are others. Some of you have opinions about those, but I would submit to you that it's not afraid to engage in the fight and stand your ground and win or be carried out on your shield. I think that that will go well inside the Potomac. Finally, I want to talk with you about electability. There's been a lot said about that, and the whole reason we're here today, folks, is because we want to keep this seat Republican. First and foremost, I respect your process as the Central Committee, and I will abide and accept your decision. So, Carol Howell, please sit down. Now, let me tell you a couple other things about electability. Electability is 4 legislative races in a row. Electability is someone who got to say that they left the legislature because of term limits, that they retired. Electability is someone over their last 2 legislative elections in the second most Republican registered Senate district in the state averaged 80% of the vote. That, I hope, you consider when you think about electability. Finally, I think electability also involves something else that we've been struggling with since 2008 when Barack Obama's campaign showed up against John McCain. Electability, ladies and gentlemen, is grassroots. Electability is your central committees. Electability is your clubs. Electability is your women's groups. Electability is knowing how to counter that Democratic ground machine that has the little iPads and walking around your neighborhoods. And you do that with constant motion, with the candidate's face out there who knows the people, knows the communities, and is in your neighborhoods and in your communities. Grassroots. Has anybody else talked to you about grassroots? Have you heard the word precinct mentioned in any of this? Organization? Those sorts of things? You must have that piece. You cannot simply hire consultants, fill the mailbox up, and do the TV stuff. You better get out there and let them take your measure. And that's why 80% the last 2 elections happened. Who will you give your vote to today to go forward in the CD2 race? I hope you consider those things. I hope you take a good hard look at where we need to be in 14 months from now and how that puts us in line for 2012. I am comfortable with the fact that you folks have done your homework, and I appreciate that. I ask for your support, and let's hope that we can get this thing out of here so all you folks that have to get on your planes will be on that 6 o'clock plane. Good morning.
Questions for Senator? Please.
Good morning. My name is Russ Wheeler from Clark County, and we know the Obama administration has taken the previous administration's amount of spending and quadrupled it, placing this country in dire financial straits. What I would like to know, Mr. Amodei, is will you fight to limit the spending by the Congress to something less than the expected revenues each year? And in order to do that, that would mean cutting significant portions of the federal government, restricting its use on our wallets. Is that something you would be able to introduce legislation to accomplish?
Thank you, Russ. Actually, I don't think I need to introduce legislation. I need to cozy up to Paul Ryan and give him whatever support he needs, because there's a Republican who, instead of doing the old saw and going over in the corner and folding your arms and saying no, said, here's my plan. Here's what I'm willing to do. And you know what? Nobody on the other side's done that. Nobody on the other side has done that in years. So I would not introduce my own legislation, but I would go with and stand with Representative Ryan and say, how do we do this? And by the way, folks, when you talk about that and you want a dose of the truth is if you're going to balance the budget, you have to go where the money is. You have to go where the money is. And that means there are entitlement programs, and that means defense. But it's doable. I think we can live within our means. I don't think we need to raise any taxes. Balanced budget amendment's a good thing, but I wouldn't link it. I would not link it to a vote on the debt ceiling, because if you increase the debt ceiling, you will get more debt.
My name is Richard Engel. I'm from urban Clark County. Mr. Amodei, the person who nominated you said you have a conservative voting record. However, in 2003, you voted for Senate Bill number 8, which Kenny Gwynn, our former governor, sued us in the state Supreme Court. Could you tell me how raising our taxes in 2003, $800 million, is a conservative voting record?
Be happy to. You got part of the story right, and I appreciate that. In 2003, you have to remember election 2002. Kenny Gwynn was just elected to a second term. He wanted to raise the budget, and you know what you need to raise the budget in Nevada? 51% of the vote. His budget came out of both committees with Republican and Democrat votes. Wasn't on either one of those committees, but the budget was passed. You forgot that there were 3 special sessions. You know what those 3 special sessions were over? Because while the budget was passed with a majority, you needed 2/3 to pass taxes. The reason we had 3 special sessions is because they couldn't get in the Senate the 2/3 to pass a tax bill. And the reason they couldn't is because there was a group of us in the Senate that said we will not vote for any bill which contains a Nevada business income tax or creates the Nevada IRS. I would refer you to the June 20th ad in the Nevada Appeal, where the Carson City Chamber of Commerce says, by the way, I think they're a pro-business outfit, the gross receipts tax or any of its variations, a unified business tax, franchise fees, etc., is still a gross receipts tax and is unfair to business and damaging to our state's economy. We are particularly appreciative of Senator Randolph Townsend, a name some of you in Reno may be familiar with, and Senator Mark Amodei for responding to their Carson City constituents and voting against a gross receipts tax. The battle in 2003 that required 3 sessions of the legislature, and let's not forget the lawsuit where the Attorney General sued the legislature for not producing a revenue bill. Let's not forget that lawsuit. It was about whether or not we were going to have an income tax in Nevada on businesses. Here's the ad. It is in my printed materials. Check it out. Don't take my word for it. The fight, when you talk about will you stand and fight, was whether or not we were going to have an income tax. And guess what? We stood the ground through 3 special sessions, through threats by very important lobbying groups and everybody else until we got a bill that did not have the Nevada income tax. And then it was supported. Thank you.